myself. My name's Anisha Hurd. I'm an admission counselor at Marietta College. I'm going to let them introduce themselves as well. Tonight, our topic, we're covering experiential learning experiences, which is very great. Something we're very passionate about, at Marietta College. So I'll let these great ladies introduce themselves first, and then we can get the first question started. Any takers who wants to go first?
I'll go first. My name is Betsy Knoww. I'm the director of the Career Center. I am finishing my first year at Marietta College. And throughout this presentation, we might hear from this guy back here. This is Bongo, the Australian Shepherd.
I can go next. I'm Maribeth Saleem-Tanner. I am the director of Civic Engagement at Marietta College, and I've been at Marietta almost 7 years, 6.5 years. And our office coordinates community service, community engagement opportunities, service.
And my name is Christy Burke, and I have been at Marietta College. This is my 13th year, and I'm the director of education abroad. And during my time here, I have sent students to all inhabitable continents across the world.
Great. All right, kind of to kick things off, I'll just start out with a general question to you guys. Anybody can feel free to answer. So obviously we're in trying times right now. So I'm wondering how you guys are currently engaging with students to keep them engaged on campus and your current roles on campus.
So I'll start because I know it's a hot topic in terms of helping our students figure out what's next. So all of my staff, there's 3 of us. Kelly Campbell is an assistant director, and she deals directly with employers and engages them in terms of on-campus recruiting and events surrounded around informing students about the opportunities that are out there. And then Julie Dye is our administrative coordinator. She runs the office and works a lot with first-year students in terms of getting a resume developed and started thinking about what path they're heading. So right now, in terms of engagement, we are doing a lot of different things because we know that a lot of different students pay attention. They're all motivated differently. So we have alumni right now through our Connected Speaker series. We've got alums. Our last one is actually going tomorrow night, and he's talking. They have been collectively talking about their careers. How do they talk about their liberal arts education? What do they feel as though the Marietta College education gave them in terms of getting a leg up into the corporate world or graduate school or medical school or whatever direction they were headed? We are engaging with employers. 4 hours ago, we hosted Wright Pat Air Force Base as they are hiring 20,000 employees in the next 5 to 10 years because of growth and retirements. And we're working with students one-on-one in terms of what kinds of jobs are they looking for. Right now, students aren't necessarily going to find the ideal first job. And so it's learning how to take that liberal arts education and pivoting in a way that makes sense, that gets them excited, that gets them moving in a good professional direction so that when the economy does start to recover and recuperate, they've got their foot in the door somewhere.
That's great. Great answer.
I can go next, and I am lucky because one thing I get to do at Marietta is teach classes. So I've had kind of a nice ready-made way of continuing to connect with students. So I have a practicum class, which is about discussion and facilitation. So I've been meeting with those students via Zoom once a week and getting to catch up with everybody, which has been actually fun. And I also work with student leaders to help plan some orientation and community engagement programs. And we've been figuring out all the cool things Zoom can do, like make breakout rooms and put people in small groups and see everybody's pets. So we've had a lot of interaction with students, which has been pretty fun. They've all been great sports. But in general, our office does obviously a lot of work where we're out in the community. And so we had to kind of rethink some of that, just trying to be really conscious about public health and keeping everybody safe. But we work with about 36 different organizations in town. And so one cool thing that we were able to do is to kind of call all the places that students normally volunteer and check in with them and see how they're doing and send students updates and make sure that people are still kind of communicating by email and in the loop about the service that they do and the places that they're going. And that's been pretty neat to see, like, students checking in with their nonprofits and nonprofits checking in with their students, and seeing those relationships continue even when people are a little farther apart. The other thing that we have been working on is we have a PIO Stay Engaged campaigns. We did some social media work where students actually took pictures of themselves. We had one student, Tori, who made over 50 masks. She like learned to sew and made over 50 masks with her mom, distributing out in different places in the community where she lives. And so she was sending us updates and pictures about that, and we could kind of share that. That was very cool. And we are also hosting like virtual speakers, much like the Career Center. So we had a speaker at lunch last week. We had sort of there's a campus-wide virtual trivia that Katie Evans, who also works in our office, is helping host actually tonight. And we've been also doing some virtual service. So we had a food drive that was a campus-wide project. We raised over $9,300 for our local community foundation, Marietta Community Foundation, to donate to local pantries. It was super exciting. And we're also doing some projects with our local senior center, encouraging students to write letters to local seniors. So even though we're doing the kind of traditional on-campus stuff, the relationships and the projects and the service can continue.
Awesome. Hold on, Christy, before you go, I noticed we have a couple students that have logged into this. If you guys have any questions that you want to hear from or hear from a certain person, please add that into the Q&A box and I will shout that out. So Christy, if you want to go.
Sure. So, so my position is twofold. So I work with students who want to study abroad and our international students who are on campus. So we have, during this crisis, we have been working very closely with our partner programs to figure out how best to manage the situation for our students who were abroad initially when we were not making evacuations. And then once that decision was made, then we worked with the program providers to make sure that the students had a streamlined process for reacclimating into the US. Usually they went home. And then also to figure out what services and support they needed to continue their courses online while in the United States. And so all of those students are completing their semester abroad at home, but virtually. And we've been passing on tools that we found that students might be wanting, but don't necessarily know that they want. So the re-entry process after you go abroad is very challenging in some cases. And when it is unplanned, that can really throw a wrench in what your plan was. And so we do a lot of planning with students, and they spend a lot of time preparing for the time that they go abroad. And when it's cut short or it's postponed, then that can be a challenge. So we've been providing some support materials for them as well. From the international side, we've been working with the students who are at home and trying to do Zoom classes in a completely different time zone. In many cases, 13 to 14 hours different. So their nights and days are opposite in Japan right now. And so just checking in with students on that. And then also working with our students who wanted to go abroad this summer and to see whether or not they can fit that in for another time with their academic career. And then also working with other students to figure out when it's going to work best for their academic time frame, and to kind of work with them on when embassies will reopen so that they can get their paperwork, their passport application, and the visa applications to make decisions on when they should go.
Christy, I have to put in a little thing. So this morning I had two students who were working in an entrepreneurship class to develop a program proposal for a service project kind of program with international students. And two students reached out to me to schedule a time to do an interview for their project. And we Zoomed together, and one of them was in Vienna, West Virginia, which is like 15 minutes away, and the other was in Japan. And I was like,
oh, great.
See him right now. He's like, it was actually very cool. So yeah.
That's very, very good. I think I know which students you were meeting with. So
yeah, it was really pretty neat. So
that's awesome. All right, kind of switching gears a little bit, we'll shift back over to Betsy, talking more about Career Center and internship experiences. Obviously, like we've mentioned, very important for the future. I know things are a little bit different, but what resources do you have available for students, incoming freshmen, sophomore, junior, to kind of set them up for the future? So you can talk about a little bit about Handshake or any other tools that they can utilize on campus.
Sure. So I would say probably the number one recommendation that I would give students who are thinking that they need to have an internship is to think more broadly. Employers want to know that you have had an experience, and in some cases, a major at Marietta is going to require you to do an internship. Mm-hmm. And in some cases, it's not. But an internship is not the end-all be-all, right? So there's study abroad experiences, there's civic engagement experiences, there's working as an RA, there's having a great on-campus job, there's having a great off-campus part-time job. Mm-hmm. There are lots of ways that a student can garner experience that allows them to reflect and think through, what did I learn, what did I like, what did I not like, and how does this set me up for the future? So in a lot of cases, it's not necessarily an internship. It can be a lot of different things. In particular, I remember a student who came to our office at the end of November last fall, and he had banked all of his work study. He had gotten them all done, all of his work study hours done in the fall semester, because he knew he didn't quite have the skill set to be able to get a paid internship in his field. So he came to us, and we worked with Amy Elliott out of the OCE office and found a couple of nonprofits who might be able to give him some research experience and data analytics experience, some international experience because of what he was interested in. And that would set him up for what was coming next. And it worked because he had a plan. He had thought through it. He had put together the right pieces and parts in that fall semester. He made sure that he took some of his heavier classes in the fall so that he would be able to dedicate 20 hours a week to an unpaid internship so that he could get ready for the next thing. So that would be my number one recommendation, is think ahead, right? Try to think a couple of semesters ahead, so that if you can do a study abroad experience, it fits and it makes sense. If you can find yourself involved in civic engagement in a much more meaningful, significant way, it makes sense. But in terms of internship resources and resources that are available in the Career Center, there's the mechanical pieces, right? There's Handshake, which is the career management system that we use to post all of our jobs, internships, full-time, part-time, volunteer, fellowship, experiential learning, on-campus employment, everything. What's great about Handshake is that it's used by 800 or more universities and colleges all across the country. So it's not just MOV jobs, it's jobs in Pittsburgh, it's jobs in Austin, Texas, it's jobs in New York City. So we've got Handshake, we've got Big Interview. Big Interview is a virtual interviewing tool, which is definitely the direction that more employers are going, to practice interviewing here and what that feels like, especially if on the other side it's not a real person, it's a machine evaluating your body language and your facial expression and all the words that you're using. Right now we are using a free tool called JobScan, and JobScan basically reads your resume and says, how much does it match to this job description? And it works with like 7 or 8 of the big time applicant tracking systems as a way of coming back and saying, you didn't use strategize enough, you need to put that in your resume. You didn't use the word collaborate enough, you need to put that in your resume. So students have an idea that if they don't get to that 80% mark, they're probably not going to get past the system for some of those bigger companies. Then we have the people, right? So those are a couple of mechanical pieces, but then we've got the people. I have more hands of long blue line in the air right now than I do necessarily students who want to take advantage of networking with them. So the long blue line is terrific. They want to help. They want to help students think through. They want to give recommendations. They want to coach them. And so that's an incredible resource, especially in times like this. Where they're going to be kind of our frontline people as a way of saying, hey, this entry-level job just opened up, or hey, there's this great paid internship. So those are just a couple of the tools, but if you are motivated enough to start your freshman year, start your freshman year, because it will only open up opportunities. It will not shut down opportunities. It will give you more information, more ability to reflect, more understanding of what kind of work will motivate you once you leave Marietta.
Great. I like the word you use, collaborate. And I know you just mentioned Maribeth and the civic engagement. and working with those sorts of things and nonprofits. So if you want to talk about a little bit what opportunities students have on campus or off of campus, whether it's volunteering, getting involved with leadership, maybe even just talking about the overall picture. I know there's a ton of things that you guys do in that office.
We do.
So
Sure.
Absolutely more.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So I'll try and hit a few high points. So we do sort of more like what I would think of more traditional community service. So, so students who did community service in high school and enjoyed it or want to do more of it, if they're just like, hey, I want to go, you know, I like animals and I want to get involved with the local humane society. Great. We can like help hook you up to start volunteering there or help hook you up to volunteer at, you know, local Boys and Girls Club or sort of all those things that kind of enrich your experience, get you out in the community, connect you with new people, give you some chance to practice things that you're learning in the classroom maybe. So we have sort of these more just like straightforward volunteer programs where we match students and send them out in the community on a regular basis with community partners. We have big days of service on campus. So we also have in the fall, Marietta Makes a Difference Day. And in the winter semester, spring semester, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, we have big days of service where hundreds of people come together and do projects both on and off campus. We kind of spread out across the whole community and do a big day of engaging, and like teams come and volunteer together in classes and groups, and it's really fun and celebratory. And we always have food and a good time together. And so there are kind of programs like that. We also do election engagement. So if students are interested in politics, we work with college Republicans, college Democrats, we work with faculty, we help register people to vote and do sort of local and regional and national issue education so students can be informed citizens. And then we also do service trips. We have an alternative breaks program where once we're all allowed to go places again, which is hopefully gonna be really soon, we send students out both locally but around the country and also internationally. So trips to the Dominican Republic, trips out to DC and to Florida. We've gone all over and spent, you know, about a week at a time learning and serving in different communities. And then we do have lots of connections with nonprofits. Betsy mentioned Amy Elliott. We have a program called Nonprofits Lead, which is kind of like a consulting and professional development program for local organizations. And so students can get involved and learn kind of that business side of nonprofits. And we have, for example, one thing that we run through Nonprofits Lead is a class called Next Gen, which is a leadership class. It's in our leadership department. And our leadership program, and students get kind of a matchmaking process where we find a local organization. They sit on the board of directors of that organization. We train them as board members, so they learn about what it means to be part of the leadership in an organization. They learn to write a grant. They actually get to write a grant and compete for money, real money for their organizations. They learn to analyze organizations and kind of get to be consultants, and so they build a lot of skills and connections that way. It's a super great resume builder, but it's also really fun. We just had that class met Friday, and we were talking to a couple students who'd gone through the program, and they said, I didn't know I was going to miss my board when I was done, but I really missed them. So like, you know, people out in the community that you might not otherwise connect to. And so, yeah, so we do a lot of different things, a lot of fun things. But in terms of getting involved, that's the thing. We try and just make it really easy, right? We're at every event, we table, we do fairs, we visit classes. And so we have open offices. So any student, even if they're like, I'm not even really quite sure what I want to do, I just know I kind of want to get out there and do some things. That's really fun because we can just sit down and say, what are you interested in? What do you want to learn more about? What do you want to get experience in? And we can almost always find something that will get them there. So whether it's starting their own project from scratch or just volunteering once a week walking dogs, like, and anything in between.
Great, thank you. Christy, I think you're up with your great background. Obviously going to ask you a question about that and studying abroad. Can you talk a little bit more about what that process looks like? How would a student go about setting up or meetings with you or starting the process of either figuring out where they want to go study abroad, how long they're going to study abroad, where to study abroad? Obviously, there's endless opportunities at that. So if you want to just speak on that a little bit more.
Sure. So, so the concept of experiential learning and study abroad specifically is introduced to you obviously before you even get to campus. So you're in a session. We also have, we're featured in the involvement fair, which is in the first week of school. We are mentioned in the experiential ed, or not the experiential ed, the freshman seminar class. So there's lots of opportunities to be exposed to the idea of study abroad in experiential ed. And then once you have expressed an interest in it, you meet with myself or one of our staff members, and we ask you to fill out a questionnaire, and it asks you things like, where do you want to go? What's your second choice for where you want to go? What kind of city do you want to be in? Do you want to be in a large capital metropolitan area? Are you looking for more of like a medium size or a small size city? Are you looking for a village of, you know, less than 1,000 people? What types of classes are you looking for? What is your housing situation? Do you want to live with a host family? Are you looking to live in an apartment? Would you want to live in a residence hall in a university somewhere else? And then also, what time frame are you looking for? Do you want to go in the summer? Do you want to go during the semester? And so when we look at all of those things, we kind of pick options for you that work based on what you filled out in the questionnaire. And then we require a face-to-face appointment. And so in the world of Zoom, that would be, it means I'm looking at you, you're looking at me, and we're talking, we're having a dialogue, not typing. Because a lot of the questions then are probed based on where the conversation is leading. So if you wrote down in your questionnaire you wanted Australia and Kenya, but you realize that you really want medical Spanish, well, our top program is in Costa Rica. So then we can look for programs in Australia and Kenya, but if your interests lie with something else, then we want to be able to give you that material and kind of ask you why you're thinking this, why did you put those answers down? You are allowed to come in as many times as you want with as many different location options as you want. We don't have any restriction on the number of times you meet. And so then from there, we look at, is there anything unique you want to add into your experience? So the basic study abroad program is you take a full-time load of courses. And in the summer, that's usually 1 to 2. And in the fall, it's usually 4 or 5. Depending upon the credit load and the country that you're going to. In some cases, there's language programs that are intensive languages where their credits are higher, and then you take a couple of electives, or you may be taking some lab courses. It really depends on the place. We really do encourage students to save some of their general education classes so that they can take advantage of the specialties of the host country. So for example, I've had an education major who was a high school science and math teacher go to New Zealand. And one of the classes she was able to take was a class about volcanoes and a class about Antarctic studies, because she was in New Zealand and those are subjects that are studied there. And those are not necessarily specializations we offer on campus. We had an art major who went to Florence and took glass blowing and jewelry making, which we don't offer here on a regular basis. And so that really enhanced her program. So we try to look for academic, personal, and professional goals when we're looking at all of your program options. And then we also help you look at the financial side of it and then work closely with financial aid.
Great, thank you. So it doesn't look like we have any questions coming in at the moment. So I can ask a question. Pretty basic one, just wanting to know what you guys enjoy most about Marietta College in the position that you're in right now, and kind of assisting students through the process of figuring out what experiential learning experience they want to go into, or kind of figure out what their passion is.
I can start. So I know it's sort of cliche, but man, our students are amazing. And I think the thing that I really love over and over about the work that we do is that people don't always come in sort of expecting to find their thing through civic engagement. Mm-hmm. But for example, you know, a couple of years ago, we had a student who volunteered with us. They were really interested in science. They were planning to go to like grad school for hard sciences, which is awesome. And they were a great student and did a class where we kind of talked about social analysis and went on a couple of alternative break trips and got really interested in sustainability. and like ended up deciding to go and do like the Peace Corps and teach about sustainability and sustainable farming. Not a thing that they came in thinking that, you know, maybe they would ever do. And, you know, similarly, like we had a public accounting major who came and did Next Gen, and she said, yeah, I mean, I just thought it would look good on my resume, and I didn't really think I'd like want to be involved in community, but like actually really liked it. And now I'm, you know, as a person out in the world, I'm like looking for a board I can join. And so I think sometimes students come in and they're just sort of like, well, that sounds fun, which it is. It's really fun, but it's really great to watch that sort of spark, right? Like a thing that you didn't even realize you were interested in. And then always they find ways, our students always find ways to connect it back to their major or their career or their goals. And I just find that that's constantly just amazing, how they make these really rich connections with their interest and their skills and sort of community needs, and how they can make that all work together. And so no matter how many times it happens, it's just super cool every time with every student.
So I think that my favorite part about my job is when I'm helping a student prep for an interview. And because it's a moment for me or for someone on my staff to help them extract and articulate what is so great about the things that they've already done. I think a lot of times students come in and they say, well, I just, or I only. I'm like, wait a minute, let's back up here. You only were an RA on a floor with 35 freshman women. Like, there's something to be said about that skill set. And there's something to be said about that patience. Yes, hi. And there's something to be said about being able to say, I was selected and I earned that opportunity. And this is what it meant for me. I recognized how good I am at listening, or I really developed my collaboration skills because everybody in my building tried to do one big program. So for me, it's the ability to get somebody actually believing that they have skills that an employer wants to hire. And then they come back and they say, oh, I moved on to the next round. I'm like, of course you did. Thank you so much. You did everything. No. I gave you some coaching and I gave you some framework. You did the work. And you need to pat yourself on the back for doing that. So let's remember that you did the work, and you also were supported by family members or parents or grandparents or siblings or friends who helped cultivate you in the first place. So that's probably my favorite part about my job and what it is that we do on a day in and day out basis.
And I would say that my favorite part about my job is when I see a student for the first time after they've returned from being abroad, and that initial, how was it, right? And then the setup, the meeting to talk about it in more depth. And so I think one of the unique things that I get to do in my role is I get to say to a student, you can come and talk to me about your experience anytime you want. I'm going to listen. I'm going to hand you a tissue if you miss it. I'm going to celebrate with you if you do something that reminds you of it, or make a dish from that time with the ingredients only available in Marietta, Ohio. I get to allow the students who have been abroad to explore the re-entry process to the US in a in-depth way. And I really value that is something that is part of my work. A very close second is when a student who has been working with me comes in and tells me that they've been accepted to their program and that we're about to start the journey, really, where we finish up all the loose ends and then the student is on their way to their new location.
Well, all those were great. We don't have any questions still, but I do have one more question for you guys before I let you guys loose, or let you guys have any questions for me or anything you guys want to talk about. So that question is, you guys all mentioned kind of what you guys are really passionate about, and it's great. Do you have a student, someone more recently maybe? I know Betsy, you only been here a year, so you may not have a ton, but hopefully that you have worked with this past year and they've gone through your office and they have a successful story. So Christy, someone that studied abroad last year maybe, or Maribeth, I know you spoke about a student going through Gen Z and things like that. So can you give one of those examples for the students that we have listening right now?
So I actually do have an example.
Okay, awesome.
In the last couple of weeks, we've been working really heavily with the teacher candidates, teacher education candidates, sorry. And so in their senior capstone, right, their senior capstone got cut off just like everybody else. They were in student teaching and they only got 7 or 8 weeks instead of getting a full 12 or 13. And so in that senior capstone class, their professor required them to come and have a conversation with me, a mock interview with me. And so I've been working with a student who came to me. I had met him before by presenting in a classroom, but had not actually engaged with him face to face. And we did 2 mock interviews. And then he came back after he earned an interview at a school that he had not necessarily put at the top of his list. But earned an interview. We did 2 practice rounds. He came back after the first one and said, they invited me back for a second. Now they want me to do a Zoom lesson. I don't know how to do a Zoom lesson. I've only been on the other side. And so my assistant director, Kelly Campbell, has been using Zoom for quite some time. So I handed him off to her and he did a lesson with her. I then, a couple of Sundays ago, sat down with him and was a fake geometry math student and let him do his lesson. And we talked through some of those issues. And all the while he was like, well, what do I do if they offer? I said, your job is not to worry about the offer. Your job is to worry about the next interview. So you don't worry about whether or not they offer you. You just do the best you can in this moment. You go get another job interview. And if they come back, then we will discuss. But your job is to keep interviewing until you get a job offer. So he did, came back, I don't know, a couple of days later, had a new job interview with a different school. And lo and behold, that second school came through and offered him much more quickly. And a lot of it was because of the prep work he had done. They wanted to see another Zoom lesson. He already had that ready to go. The first interview went so well because he had some questions prepared that they moved that process along more quickly. So it's tried and true, right? If you practice something, inevitably you will get better at it. And job searching, career searching, understanding what you're good at, understanding how to articulate those skills, it's all practice. And so this was a young man who was willing to do it in a very short amount of time because he was dedicated to doing it right the first time. And it turns out, within about 2.5 weeks, he had a job offer and was happy with it.
That's awesome.
I can share a story. Oh, sorry, Christy.
Nope, go ahead.
I can share a story kind of on the other side. So I talk about seniors and graduating seniors and what they end up doing, but we had a really cool thing happen this year with a first-year student who actually got assigned as part of a service learning class to help plan a service project with the Humane Society. And she was in a group and they did a lot of work and got to know the Humane Society and know the people there. And she got really excited about it and wanted to stay involved and sort of met some people at the Humane Society. And she said, boy, it's really great. There's all these dogs. They need to be walked. People love dogs, but it's kind of far away. It's like a 10-minute drive. But for students, particularly first-year students, who might not have cars, or said, I think there's a lot of students who want to do this. It's kind of far away. And she started talking to the people she met there and going to some meetings with the Humane Society folks. And they came up with this whole plan, first-year student, just on her own, with an organization to start dog walking on campus. And so we helped them. And they organized a whole program where now once a week, the Humane Society to bring dogs to campus, and we're training volunteers, and volunteers could walk them around campus and help people see them and help them get adopted. And but it was this project that it came out of, a student who got assigned to an organization to help them and then got super excited about what they did and got to know people and decided, Marietta is a small school, which in some ways is super great. Because if you're like, I think I'd like to start a program to have the Humane Society bring dogs to campus as a first semester, first-year student, great, we'll help you do that. And we did. And by, February, we had a Valentine's Day kickoff. So it's all Valentine's Day themed, come find your dog Valentine. So we had walkers come walking dogs on campus, and it was a really cool win-win. But that was a first-year student who just decided she was excited about it and started a really great campus program.
Christy?
I would say one of our, well, I think that we had some successful students this semester that their programs got shortened. And so I think that we have not had a chance to really connect yet with those students. But I anticipate that I will be utilizing and using their stories in future success stories. But at the moment, I haven't really had a chance to connect with them on that. But I do have a success story from a student who went in their sophomore year. She's a double major in studio art and communication, and she spent the semester in Florence, Italy. And I think the success for Leah was really in that Italy rekindled a spark for her passion for studio art. And so much so that she had a sketch class and she had a painting class. And I think one of the things that I found the most interesting for her is she went there with no Italian language whatsoever. And she said she was so surprised that every time she sat down to sketch anywhere in Florence, someone would come up and talk to her. And so there was a connection through art. And that led to conversation, sometimes more difficult because of language barriers. In some cases, they were other foreigners that were just inquiring about the art. But one of the things that I think was the greatest success about that is very rarely do we have an opportunity to showcase a portion of someone's study abroad in the way we were able to do that with Leah. And so we had an art exhibit with all of Leah's artwork that she produced in Florence. And part of that was because she was a studio art major and she took majority classes that had artwork she was able to bring back. And so she chose what pieces to select. And then the other cool thing was she started painting jean jackets with portraits, artistic portraits, and that's spun into a PIO pitch idea, which is an entrepreneurial program we have on campus, and commissions for her portfolio. And then also she submitted one of her final projects to a competition in West Virginia and actually, I think, won or was a finalist. And so that was really an exciting way to share a study abroad experience in a way that people can relate without travel, but also with travel. So it was probably one of the greater success stories I've had in the last few years. And I will say that I'm very proud to say that many of the alums that have spoken on the Career Connect Zoom program have studied abroad. And I'm very happy to report that many of them have said, I studied abroad, this did change my course and my direction, or it allowed me when I made a shift in I had a fork in the road and I was able to go back to some of those skills from my time abroad, and it led me down this new path. And so that's always really exciting to hear from alums, because I know that that's going to happen, but it's always really gratifying to hear them vocalize that that is the case.
Awesome. I was going to say, do you guys have anything else that you want to add before we wrap up? I know all of you guys' departments are great on campus, great ways for your students to be involved. I know a lot of students probably feel like they can't do everything, but we obviously know we have students that do that on campus. So it's nice to be able to hear from you guys and your perspective to see what ways students can get involved in the experiential learning experience. Obviously, we know it is something that we do require at Marietta College. So it's good to see that there are a lot of different ways for students coming in and current students to be able to do that. Do you have any last minute comments or questions, anything you would like the students to know?
Sure. Yeah, so I think it's really important for any prospective student and incoming student to understand that any student can have an experiential education opportunity, regardless of their extracurricular activities and commitments and their major. Some majors require more planning than others. Some extracurricular activities are more time consuming than others. But the idea, particularly with regards to study abroad, is available to everybody. And my second thing, which I think is really important to stress to any parents who watch this and also students, is that throughout this entire COVID-19 pandemic, I was very aware of what was happening in the countries with our students. I received updates from risk management teams. I received updates on government changes and university policies of our host institutions. And I was constantly aware of what was happening. I was seeing the messaging that was being sent to the students. I was seeing the updates. In some cases, they were coming 3 and 4 times a day. And so I think safety is our top priority. And I think it's really important for people to know, we don't know where this is going. We do know that study abroad will continue, and we will continue to adapt to the new perspectives, but always having safety at the forefront of our interests.
Yeah. I'm going to throw in that, you know, this is a time now when you make a decision about where you're going to go to college, during and after, is a time to network. So much to what Christy was saying earlier is that there are some people who come to college and only do one thing, and that's they dedicate their time to it. They immerse themselves in it, and that ends up being a very rich experience, but that also becomes an incredibly narrow network. So you've got offices, you've got faculty, you've got coaches, you've got instructors, you've got adjunct faculty, you've got community members, you've got all of these people in a campus community who at the end of the day, if you ask them why they work in higher education, it's to help young people figure it out. Whatever the rest of that answer, that rest of that sentence might be. And so use that network, meet the people on your floor, meet and go talk to your faculty members, understand who your supervisor is, work with all of the coaching staff and the athletic training staff and the sports information staff. Use all of those networks and connect with those people, because it will only benefit you down the road.
Great, and to just add a tiny bit to all the great things that have already been said. I mean, I think as people are trying to decide about college, right, I think people think a lot about majors, which they should, right? Think a lot about classes, which they should, but keeping in mind that, you know, college is a whole experience. And so kind of thinking about how you want to grow, I mean, what you want to study, where you want to be at the end, but how you want to grow in between, right? What kind of experiences do you want to have? What kind of connections do you want to make? What kind of adventures do you want to explore? And really thinking about that as part of your plan, and that those are just as important, and how you grow as a human being during your time, as well as a professional and as a student. And keeping in mind that the experiences that we help facilitate, and the faculty and your peers, are about all of those things together.
Awesome. I'll add my little 2 cents to that too. I think for the students coming in, you definitely need to step out of your comfort zone a little bit. These great ladies that have been speaking today, you definitely need to be involved with them on campus. Definitely can get you to where you want to be. But outside of that, obviously it's going to be an experience that you're going to make. Hopefully memories that last a lifetime. So definitely get involved on campus. Definitely a great campus to get involved on. So definitely utilize those resources that we do have available to you. But other than that, thank you guys for joining us today. I know we have upcoming sessions. So we have one tomorrow. For any students that want to tune into that, make sure to check your emails. Again, thank you guys. If you don't have anything else to add, I won't take up too much more of your time. I know we do have another experiential learning experience panel coming up next week, I believe.
28th.
Friday?
No, the 28th. Next
28th. I was going to say, oh, that's pretty quick. Okay, so if you guys want to tune back in on the 28th, feel free to do so. The questions will be a little bit different on that as well. So definitely tune in on that, or tune in for tomorrow. But that's
Thanks,
all. See you guys later. Thank you guys again.
Thank you.
Thanks, Misha. Thanks,
Have a good
everyone.
one.